What a difference 12 hours makes. It's Tuesday, the 13th of September still, but it's now 7:41 at night with an update on the Mosquito Fire and events here in Nevada, Placer, and El Dorado counties. I came down from the Reno air races this afternoon to get an update on the fire situation as I had a big break in my action, and jumped up in the Husky to about 6,000 feet, well to the west of the temporary flight restriction area over the Mosquito wildfire. So what happened this afternoon, as we talked about in the morning report, this fire had laid down pretty well over the last couple of days. Well, today we had the atmosphere change. The Hurricane K remnants had moved out of the area. We got cooler, clearer weather and a good, what we call a delta breeze or a westerly flow of wind off of the ocean and into the mountains here today. And so what happened today is a couple of events. Right over here on the left, about 3 or so in the afternoon, a new fire started called the Dutch Fire. That's at the Dutch Flat off-ramp off of Interstate 80, which is a very popular place for hot breaks. And that fire got into the timber. And so for a while this afternoon, Nevada County Airport was running 4 S2T tankers out of the airport, and they got it. They caught this fire before it escaped too very far into the timber. It was headed right for a bunch of structures, but they got it. They kept it down to probably 26 acres or so. But in the meantime, the Mosquito Fire is now a 3-headed monster. And what we call the heel of the fire, remember, let's see, if you're looking at a fire this way, this would be the heel. Here's the head of the fire. Here would be your left flank, and here would be your right flank. So right here near the town of Foresthill, remember Oxbow Reservoir is where this fire started a week ago. The heel exploded a bit, or they called it a spot fire, a 300-acre spot fire, and it came up out of the canyon and began to impact Foresthill pretty seriously this afternoon. But it appears as though they've stopped the fires again at the Foresthill Road. So let's take a look at that. So again, here's the Dutch Fire from this afternoon, which the tankers caught. Here's the heel of the Mosquito Fire in the town of Foresthill. There's the Foresthill High School right in there. And then the other two heads of the Mosquito Fire are kind of obscured by smoke way back in here. So this fire is separated now, 50,000 acres. It's separated by miles and miles. Some of the numbers, we got 5,700 folks evacuated out of 2,600 homes and 3,700 personnel working this fire. As a point of reference, this burn area is the Bear Fire that burned just last year on the Bear River, and there's a Rollins Reservoir. So this is the town of Colfax, Interstate 80, looking to the east. Here's the remnants of the Dutch Fire right here, Interstate 80 cutting through here, mostly obscured by smoke overhead from the Mosquito Fire just a few miles away. Here's another view looking under the smoke from the heel of the fire of the heads of the Foresthill Fire up in here. And here's this heel, and here's Foresthill. And here's what it looks like from pretty close to the Blanco Lirio Global Headquarters. Here's Nevada County Airport right here, and the fire some 20 miles away, crow miles at Foresthill. So as I zoomed in on this so-called spot fire at Foresthill, you could see the black smoke of some structures burning, and right down in here is the Foresthill High School. And KCRA had some news reporters on there, and there was some crowning of fire up right in here, but the air attack was very heavy with large air tankers. They just pummeled this thing with the large air tankers out of McClellan Air Force Base, and were able to keep this fire apparently right along the Foresthill Road. We'll take a look at that on the map here in a moment. There's one of the large air tankers right there. Maybe that's one of the spotter planes. But they just continued to hammer this 300-acre spot fire as it blew up out of the canyon today. And the problem is they had some containment. They got a lot of containment lines built in here, but the very heel part of this fire is deep down inside that canyon, and they can't get down there and contain it in that very steep terrain. So again, as big picture reference on the Google Maps, here's Grass Valley, Nevada City, Sacramento down here, Lake Tahoe over here, and the Mosquito Fire in the middle fork of the American River Canyon. The North Fork of the American River is way up here, just south of Interstate 80, and the South Fork of the American River is way down here, just north of Highway 50. There's Coloma where they discovered gold. And this fire started right down here near the Oxbow Reservoir over a week ago. Now, today, this spot fire, here's the town of Foresthill and here's the town of Todd Valley, right up on top of the ridge from the canyon. Somewhere along these points in here, this fire was still burning, as it's a 2,000-foot drop down into these canyons. And as the wind comes up out of the southwest up canyon, it comes up and it forms eddy currents. And so as the wind comes whipping up around these points, it whips around to a counterclockwise direction, and bam, it throws embers and spot fires up against the canyon walls. And that's what took off with the 300-acre spot fire. And right up in here came up right to the Foresthill Road, and there's the Foresthill High School that we saw in the pictures. And they were able to stop it on this more level terrain at the top of the ridge. These fires have a completely different personality once they get out of the steep terrain and up onto more level terrain, and that's where firefighters can begin to make a stand. Here's the latest map. Here's the town of Foresthill. There's the high school. There's the town of Foresthill. Here's the high school. Here's Todd Valley, home of a lot of homes. And here's where this spot fire got going and burning right up to the Foresthill Road. But again, with loads of retardant from the very large air tankers, while the S2s, CAL FIRE had to split their forces. The S2s, the smaller tankers, had to go hit the smaller fire at the Dutch fire, keep that fire small, while they used the large air tankers out of McClellan, not too many miles away, to pound on the town of Foresthill and keep this fire out of Foresthill so far. Looking at the overall latest mapping, here's the town of Foresthill. Here's the 300-acre spot fire, or the heel of the fire that blew out today. This is why I call it a three-headed monster. You've got this spot fire here hitting Foresthill, and then you've got the head of the fire. Again, this would be the heel of the fire where it started, and then this would be the left head of the fire up here in what they call Zone 1, and here would be the right head of the fire over here in what they call Zone 2. Remember, in the morning report, we talked about this fire hitting two previous burn areas. We've got the Rubicon burn down here near the south head, and we've got the American burn up here near the north head. And so what crews are doing, they've got 25% containment. They've got established containment lines. That would be black. If you see a division map, which I don't have a good version of right here, you'll see the black lines. Those are containment lines that the CAL FIRE is happy with, that will hold the fire. And then they've got red lines where they're still working on gaining containment. So they've got a lot of containment lines around this left flank of the fire and this right flank of the fire. And what they're doing up here at the head of the fire is a very indirect attack. So they're building dozer lines using an existing series of Forest Service roads and trails, and then having to add to that to create an indirect line well ahead of the fire. And then they're going to go in here and back burn a lot of this indirect line to reduce the impact of this fire when it comes up to the newly established dozer lines or containment lines. So a lot of the smoke that we're going to see over the next bunch of days is going to be a lot of intentional back burning operations to remove the fuel and take the fuel away from this fire as the winds push it towards the containment lines. Again, that wind is blowing generally during the day from the southwest towards the northeast. So here's some pictures I've found courtesy of Ubinet. I highly recommend paying close attention to Ubinet if you're in the local area. That's a great source for a conglomeration of all this information. Here's what a typical containment line may very well look like. This is a dozer line along a set of power lines. So usually there's a power line road running down the power lines, and so it's very easy to make that a containment line. Here's some of the large air tanker and very large air tanker action. This is the Neptune BAE aircraft near Wharton's Market, right in front of Wharton's Market. If you're a motorbike rider in Northern California, one of the most premier motorcycle rides is this Mosquito Ridge Road. That's the name of the fire, the Mosquito Fire. Miles and miles of endless twisties with no traffic on it, and you always stop here at Wharton's Market and have a picnic right behind these trucks, and you have a beautiful view of the American River Canyon, which is now getting all burned up. But it looks like they're making a stand at this fire right at the base of Wharton's Market, where that fire is coming up out of the canyon before it levels off on this ridgetop where the market is, and where this is Foresthill Road right here in front of us. Now this is probably an example of a backburn operation. Here they've got a smaller containment line, and they're going to remove this fuel on the black side, or the fire side of the containment line, if you will, to minimize the bump that fire has when it comes up to the containment line when driven by the winds. And here's a picture of the big KC-10 air tanker, Tanker 10 out of McClellan, again pounding the retardant along that Foresthill Road. Again, effective use of aerial resources, very large air tankers in the wildland wildfire interface. Now here's an interesting view, a short clip from the OES IR ship mapping the hotspots of this fire this afternoon, around 2 or 3 this afternoon. Check out the interesting Google Maps overlay on this IR flight and report. Again, this is the 300-acre spot fire, the fire impacting Foresthill coming up out of the American River Canyon. Or as there's the point I'm talking about, where those winds come up, they spin around, and they throw fire up against the side of the canyon, and up it goes towards the town of Foresthill.
OES Intel 1-2, Mosquito, September 13th.
Buffering.
38, spot fire in Division Alpha.
There's the IR view.
Mapped just over 300 acres. Todd Valley.
Off to the left.
Just up off the left shoulder of it. And recording.
Again, you can see this containment line running right along this ridge here from this point is what's going to keep this fire out of Todd Valley. Again, the wind's going this direction, up canyon from left to right. Here's another view of the DC10 tanker right at Wharton's Market. There's the picnic spot where you have your lunch, and he's firing off that retardant right along the Foresthill Road. So that's the big picture view from the Husky today, this afternoon, flying to the south, looking towards Foresthill over here, looking to the south and east. Hopefully firefighters can keep this from growing much beyond 50,000 acres. The growth that we're going to see is hopefully back-burning operations, and hopefully they can hold this fire at the containment lines that they have planned. But it's all up to Mother Nature, depending on the winds. We're getting much cooler temperatures, a little bit of humidity recovery at night, so the fire should simmer down every night and allow firefighters working through the night to gain additional containment on this fire. I'm heading back up to the air races tomorrow morning. We'll see you up there. Thanks so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.